Hey, yo, what's good? You guys are tuned in to CRE8 Force, where we create and dominate with Kai Billings. I'm Mike Sarge. Today, we have a very special guest with us, and we're excited to have her. Please join us in welcoming Master Sergeant Tiffani White to CRE8 Force. Tiffani, how are you doing?
Well, good. How are you?
Good, chilling. We're really excited to have you to have some real convos. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. Now, for anyone watching who may not know who you are or anything about you, can you share a little bit about yourself and what got you started on this journey?
I was born in Connecticut, raised in South Carolina. Basically, I'm from like a very small town, and so my thoughts were, I will not be stuck here. And they're very small-minded as well. And I hate to be one of those people who's like, I felt like I was bigger than my city, but I wanted more than what I was going to be able to provide. And I'd already been doing JRTC for the Army. Yeah, I get it. I didn't join. So then, at 18, I decided to enlist, and then now I'm at 19 years and 6 months in the Air Force. And the funny part is, I joined, and I was like, oh, let's see the world. I'm going everywhere. I ended up 4 hours from home. So that was a little disheartening, because I ended up right here where I'm at now in Augusta, Georgia, at Fort Gordon, which is now Fort Eisenhower. And to myself, ooh, ain't nobody gonna tell me nothing. If I told you what I thought I was gonna be when they told me my job, I thought I was gonna be a spy. And then I got to my tech school, which was also in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, what did I get myself into? But then just fast forward, finished tech school, got here. Ooh, this was, out of all my bases, this is my least favorite. Like, I'm just being honest, the least favorite. When I look back on it now, there's a lot of growth that I needed within myself. I was 18, like, I'm a child, and I did a lot of childlike things. But I didn't deploy out of here. Then I went to Fort Meade. Then I deployed again. Then I got picked up for a special duty assignment, and I did that for 6 years. I went to Korea, and then within those 6 years, I had like a multitude of different deployments, and then I ended up back here. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of like where my career's been.
So I'm over here laughing about the move when it came to like, yo, I'm getting out of here. Ain't nobody gonna be telling me nothing. Listen, originally from Georgia, I'm talking about myself. Similar first duty station. You already know.
No, not Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Fort Gordon,
ouch,
Eisenhower. Yep.
yikes.
Yeah. And it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting experience. So to hear you say that just made me just go, I got some trauma there. I know a thing or two about that.
And it sucks,
So
right? Because that's not what I want, like, everybody to just hear about Fort Eisenhower now and be like, oh, man, that place sucks. But your experience doesn't have to be my experience. My
right.
experience here was just, like, I was growing up, and there were parts of myself that I had to hide when I was here the first time. And so that gives for a different experience.
Right. Yeah. Especially like when the overall goal, the initial goal was to just go out there and like be your true self. Like that's this other part of being away from home is to be able to like make your own decisions and like navigate and try to figure things out for yourself. And when you right back at the same tracks essentially, when family ain't that far away, it is different. And granted, there's some pros and some cons to that, right? Like sometimes it is cool to be close to family, and friends and things that are familiar. But from a leadership perspective, right? Because you kind of mentioned that like your career has had some ebbs and some flows,
Yeah.
right? Could you can you think of or could you share like a pivotal moment like in your career that you feel like shaped your views on like leadership or inclusion or like did you feel like there was a particular moment where you felt like you grew?
My mindset changed, and I started looking at leadership differently. But it's technically two.
Mm,
One was from when I was stationed here and I had a supervisor. And granted, right, when I first joined, Don't Ask Hotel was that.
mm,
And so I had the supervisor, and just the way she loved her girlfriend and took care of her and did all these things, like, it just, like, resonated with me. Like, man, I can't wait till I can, like, be in, to have that type of love, to have that kind of commitment to someone. Then I also, like, felt bad because I'm like, man, we go to these rooms and you can't even talk about it. Like, you have to downplay your relationship and call her your roommate and do all these things. So, like, it kind of sucked because it felt like you're hiding what to you might feel like the best version of you, or what brings out the best version of you. But that was a point where I was like, man, I do. It kind of helped shape what love looked like to me a little bit. And then when I went on my first deployment in 2010, I had this Master Sergeant. She was super quiet. Her name is Angel Bouchard. But she was super quiet, but she found my humor hilarious. And it was like, there was nothing I could do that wasn't too great to her. And she was essentially my SEL on that deployment. And there was no award that she wouldn't put me in for. There was nothing that she wouldn't do. And I was like, man, is this what this feels like when somebody actually cares about your career and, like, wants to see you succeed? And after that, I started thinking to myself, I'm like, I want to do that. Like, I want to make somebody so happy about the little things that they're doing in their career that they just want to reach for the stars. And so, like, I always told her that. I called her Mama Bear because she took care of us in such a way that was, like, a mom. And that's what, like, really changed my mindset. And I was like, when I look at the NCO, I want to be just like her. Like, I want my airmen to feel like they can be themselves, but, like, I want to uplift them, and I want to be there and do all the things that they want to do, and then be there just like mom, blah, blah, blah. And that's holistically when I changed the way I looked at the Air Force and the way I looked at leadership. And then I ended up at Fort Meade after that. And so it just kind of, like, took off after that.
Wow. No, that's dope. I mean, man, it's so encouraging to hear when someone actually gets a leader that, like, inspires them. Like, there's nothing like that because, I can speak for myself where, beginning in my career, I didn't have that. Like, when the first supervisor you get is more concerned about them getting out than making sure that they're taking care of you, it's a
Yep.
problem. But on the flip side of that, have you had experiences in which, like, either you or other people around you didn't feel included, and what did you notice about those situations, or what did you pull from those situations?
I feel like I've always seen it. You can always see that one person that's just kind of off to themselves and nobody really talks to them, or, like, they have a bad rep, so no one wants to talk to them. And typically, I'm in this point where I try to do what I can control. So then I'm like, oh, okay, well, how do I bring you back into the fold? How do I make you feel included? How do I make you feel, like, worthy and, like, seen and heard? And so I've seen that just, like, randomly throughout my career. Sometimes it's self-imposed. Like, people just do things, and there's a level of accountability that needs to happen in certain situations for people to want to not isolate you in certain ways. But no, I mean, I don't know. I don't really even know if I can really pinpoint one situation because I've just seen it so much throughout my career.
No, fair enough. I think that I think it is something that we're all trying to try and figure out and pinpoint. Like, what is the factor, right? That's causing this. And to be honest with you, even leaders that may be responsible for some of it, I don't really think they have the answers either. Like, they're trying to figure it out themselves, or I should say, like, a lot of them don't even realize they're doing it.
Yep.
A lot of them don't even realize that they're excluding people. If there was a leader out there that wanted to know how they could do a better job of being inclusive, of like, maybe there's someone that's generally always mission focused, like, that's their thing, like, that is what they've put their hat on their entire career, but they want to do a little bit better job of being inclusive, involving the fold, and improving the culture. What is something, or whether, like, a tip or two that you would give them as far as, like, hey, like, these are things that can help improve the culture and the morale within an office?
So, for one, I actually take that back. When I say, like, I haven't seen a place where, well, I've seen a lot of times where people feel included to a point where I can't think of a story. I just recently, I have a mentee who went through an issue where she's very quiet, but she's very, like 10 toes down on how she feels about things. And so she was that quote unquote squeaky wheel who would be like, hey, I don't think you're supposed to tell people that. Or
Mm,
like, the way he's talking to you is very sexist, and I don't know if that's right. And so she did what she's supposed to do, and she advocated for others. She advocated for herself. And then it got to a point where she started to feel like because she was the only one speaking up, that she was being isolated from everyone else
mm,
because of all of the talking she was doing. Because, you know, it's that whole like, it's the status quo. And like, one of my least favorite things to hear is, oh, that's just how that person is. And so
mm,
she was like, no, I might be young, but I understand when like harassment and things that are borderline are happening, and that's not supposed to be happening. And so like she has definitely spoken up, and she definitely felt isolated, and she definitely told me. So then I definitely used the connections that I have to kind of figure out like, how do we fix this? Who do we talk to? What part of your leadership do we need to talk to? And I ended up being a good friend of mine who was able to kind of like rope in that whole situation. And they actually removed her from that environment because it was going to start affecting her where her work performance wasn't going to be able to show how good she could be because everyone around her was no longer invested in trying to see her shine.
mm.
So
That
I'll let you sit on that one for a
no, I'm
second.
I'm about to sit on it. Yeah,
Whoa, that's good. And then for
yeah.
the other portion where you said like, I'll be the first to say that I spent a lot of my career being very operations focused, like mission first, we got to get it done. Oh, blah, blah, fuck everything else. Da, da, da. And it wasn't until, um, not necessarily recently, but it wasn't until about 15, 16 years in that I started being like, okay, like what works best? What gets the best out of people? And that takes getting to know individuals and not just like I know your first name, but like knowing uh, about your family and knowing about your hobbies and knowing about this. So it's like for anyone who's like trying to figure out how do you get them to feel more included, it really, in theory, it shouldn't take that much because you should be human. And to be human means to have a conversation, an authentic conversation that makes that person feel like you're invested in what they're invested in. So that means learning their goals, learning what's intrinsic and extrinsic for them as motivators, and then figuring out how do I fit that into the big picture for everyone.
No, I like that, and especially like I like that, especially considering like the tier that you're at, like that senior level, that senior tier, because we always hear about like the importance of bringing people together. We always hear about the importance of mentorship, right? That one, one of those buzzwords, and pouring into others. And like as I'm thinking about that, like can you speak to the things that you've learned, like or just insights that you've learned from mentoring others? Because I know a lot of times like it's almost like there's this assumption when you're mentoring, like you're the one doing the pouring, you're the one giving the experience, you're the one giving, and like and they should be listening to you. But like there are times where you learn from others as well as you're doing the mentoring. So like are there things that you've learned in that process when you've been the mentor?
Um, because I really am, I agree with you. I think that mentorship doesn't just happen like from the top down. I think it's lateral. It's peer to peer. It's everywhere. It's in every conversation that you're having. Right? There's something that you can learn and grow and educate yourself. One of the biggest ones I had to like learn is to humble myself. Because there are definitely peers that they may not always have the years in or the operational experience that you have, but like maybe on an admin level, they understand things better than you do. Or maybe like just on an emotional intelligence level, they can read room and they have the social awareness that you don't have. And you can always learn from that. And then from like the airmen, I learn more and more every day because I'm not old, but I'm not in my 20s. So to know what motivates them, what drives them, what they're into, like to act like I understand all that and the ins and outs, I don't I don't get that stuff. Or do I know what's going on in tech school or all these other places? So like every time I'm talking to them, I have one airman that every time I'm like, well, what's that? And she's like, it means this. And I'm like, "Mm." Even down to social media when she's like, you're not on TikTok. And I'm like, I hate TikTok. And she's like, well, it does this, that, and the third. Or when I tell someone, oh my God, the best place to get your information is Facebook. And they're like, back up.
Hold
Nobody
up.
uses Facebook anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go cry in the corner as I talk about my social media usage. But I
Hmm.
don't know. It's just, there's just so much that I learned from my airmen, and just like, even in how I approach them and how I say things, because it's always how I talk to you may not be how I need to talk to the next person. And what drives you doesn't drive her. And learning how to like navigate those waters to get them both where they want to be, without feeling like I'm pushing you. I mean, I'm
Mm.
pushing, but you do.
When did you feel like you started getting comfortable with that? In regards to like knowing, like picking your spots and knowing, okay, I got to talk to this person this way. All right, this person, they respond better to this. Like, because we say it sometimes as leaders, but like the practical part of that isn't always as tangible, or like you just start getting fearful. Like you might tell yourself like, yeah, I'm gonna go talk to so and so today, or I need to go address this, and as soon as you walk in the office you just start thinking of all the excuses of reasons why you can't go talk to that person, or I gotta like hop on Outlook real quick. No, I got that thing, I got that task, or I gotta finish. So when did you feel like you started getting like comfortable where you're like, yeah, I can have this conversation, yeah, I can reach out to that person?
Um, Oddly enough, just the like knowing when to talk or how to talk to different people just comes inherently because code switching is a thing.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
knowing that when I mean, you're just taught, right? Like you can't go in there and you can't sound ghetto or you can't sound like this. You have to talk like this at all times if you want somebody to take you serious, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then understanding that like not everybody, that's not ever going to resonate with everyone because they can tell when that's not authentic, right?
Mm.
Especially when you're dealing with airmen of color, like people of color, because they're just like, is that how you really sound? And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it's not that no one wants to talk. It's about finding out what is they're passionate about. Because the moment I found it, she never shut up. Um,
Mm.
so then after that, it was just more so like, okay, so if I'm going to talk to you and I want to motivate you, I'll talk about kids. But if I want to motivate you and I'm trying to talk about this, then we'll talk about that. And one thing that I've actually also put into my toolkit is that I've started asking my airmen, like, what's your love language? Because, I mean, will it be a one-for-one swap with your love language versus, like, what motivates your work? Not necessarily, but, like, where's the affirmation? That works both ways. Giving you
Mm.
your time back. Um, Writing rewards, you can fit that in there. And once you start to figure out what motivates them, and then teaches you how to talk to them. Because if I say, I'm going to put you up for this package, they're like, amen. But if I go, bro, you've been doing such a good job, you've been doing this, go home early, I see you on Monday. I got the best work in my community because I'm recognizing what motivates him. And so the more that I do that, the better I am at like talking to people because, I mean, but also having those uncomfortable conversations is just something you just gotta like suck up and just be like, this is not one of those good conversations. Let's go find a road and let's just talk it out.